Friends and colleagues, this is Lauren Moss here to report on the last week in Colombian news. We'll start off with the announcement that Colombia has monkeypox. The National Health Institute in Colombia has confirmed that there are at least 5 cases, all traced to male Colombians having returned from Europe. There are, I believe, 4 in Bogota and 1 case in Medellin. The government has urged calm and asked that people do not panic. Monkeypox is not as contagious as COVID or other communicable diseases. So far, most cases, as I mentioned, are in Bogota, and the patients are said to be in quarantine. Monkeypox, from what I understand, is related to smallpox and cowpox. It has symptoms that are similar to chickenpox, even though chickenpox is a different illness caused by a different family of viruses. Now imagine being locked up abroad in Colombia and, to be specific, in a medium security prison in Tuluá. Tuluá is a city about 90 minutes by car north of Cali, Colombia's third largest city. The prison, built for 1,000 inmates, is holding, or was holding, 1,200. And a bunch of inmates maybe have either a beef with other inmates, as happens, or perhaps there was a prison break. Their reports are conflicting. We're not really sure what the motivation was, but some of the inmates lit stacks of mattresses on fire. Why? We're not really sure yet. It's too early to tell. The investigations are underway by INPEC, which is Colombia's Bureau of Prisons. And but anyway, of course, there's no fire suppression in this older prison. The fire gets out of control. People literally start getting burned to death, locked in cages. Up to date, we have 52 men have died in the fire. Some of the patients arrived at burn units in Cali, 90 minutes away, because the local hospital in Tuluá is not set up to deal with these types of severe burns, especially in these large quantities. We don't have many details so far, but outgoing President Ivan Duque issued a statement of condolence for the families, and so has President-elect Gustavo Petro, who has also added that he wants to revisit the prison system in Colombia, saying that it's structured for revenge instead of rehabilitation. We reported in Finance Colombia about a tropical storm that was headed towards the southern coast of the Caribbean, which means the northern coast of Colombia and Venezuela, and also had in the path the Colombian archipelago of San Andres and Providencia, with the storm eventually landing on the western Caribbean, perhaps around Nicaragua. We can say the good news is that the storm has passed without causing major damage. The governor of San Andres and Providencia, Everett Hawkins, reports that 22 homes have been damaged, but that San Andres remains fully open for travel and tourism. They were devastated, as many of you know, by Hurricane Iota in November of 2020. San Andres has largely recovered. Providencia is just opening back up. They really took the brunt of the hit and weren't well prepared for it, and they're finally rebuilding enough to open Providencia back up for tourism. San Andres has been open. We've been there recently. It's lovely. Do support them with your tourism time and dollars. That's the best way to show your solidarity with that lovely part of Colombia that not enough people from outside the country are aware of. I'll digress a minute. San Andres is fascinating because it's they're Colombian islands. The people who live there are Colombian citizens, but Spanish is their second language. They speak English at home. It's fascinating. As many of you know, Colombia is a Catholic country. These are Protestants, mostly descendants of people from the Caribbean slave trade. They were Protestants and landed on the island and they have a really distinct culture. It's fascinating because the people speak English as their native language. That's to say, among themselves at home, and then they learn Spanish and they speak Spanish with people. It's like the mirror image of Puerto Rico, if you will, where Puerto Rico is a Caribbean island that's part of a greater U.S. They speak Spanish at home, and then educated Puerto Ricans learn English. Puerto Rico is mostly Catholic. The U.S. is mostly Protestant. So San Andres is kind of, in a fascinating way, I see it as like a mirror opposite of Puerto Rico. But really, it's a lovely place, great Caribbean beach vacation, low population. The island only has about 60,000 permanent residents. It's very laid back. It's kind of, it's relatively safe. You can walk. I walked around there with an expensive camera, and nobody even came up to you and hassled you to buy bubble gum or to panhandle you or anything. So really, if you've seen Cartagena and you've seen Santa Marta and some of the other tourist hotspots in Colombia, like Medellin, if you haven't seen San Andres, go and support them. They deserve your support. They are recovering from the hurricane, but their infrastructure is intact, and they're ready to do business. The Truth Commission, which was set up in 2016 during the presidency of Juan Manuel Santos as part of the historic peace accords that he signed with the FARC rebels, has released its final report. And while the report's 800 pages long, my understanding before having my hands on it, so let me be clear, is that it calls for several different things, including a reframing or an adjustment in the anti-narcotics policy in Colombia. The current president has overseen a boom in the quantities of drugs exported from Colombia. I heard him recently in an interview trying to argue that the acreage of coca crops has gone down, but the country is exporting more cocaine than it did during the days of Pablo Escobar, which was 30 years ago. People don't realize that was 1993, 29 years ago when he was executed. And so by, I think, any kind of objective measure, the current administration has done a very poor job, and the Truth Commission has come out and they've said to completely reevaluate it. I know that I've spoken to some people in the U.S. State Department who have told me that the U.S. is very open to working with the new administration in ways that they can be creative and achieve their objectives, even though an adjustment in the methods may be necessary. So they call on an end to aerial fumigation of glyphosate, which is known under the trade, was known. It's kind of complicated now because Roundup and Monsanto was purchased by Bayer. But basically, glyphosate used to be known in some cases as Roundup. It's a strong herbicide. They called for an end to the military draft. Colombia still has conscription. I've been out and about, and I've seen army trucks with, those canvas-covered trucks with those like horseshoe shape, and they've got soldiers, and they're shanghaiing. I don't know if that's the right word these days, but they're grabbing youngsters off the street and throwing them in the back of these trucks if they can't prove that they've already done their military service, and hauling them off to be conscripted in the military, grabbing them off the street. I've seen this. There's kind of a selective service thing where you sign up for kind of a lottery, and it's kind of like the U.S. and Vietnam. If your number, based on the how lucky you are, you get called and you have to go and serve your time in the military or the police. And if you if you're lucky, once they get their quota and once they have the people that they need for that year, then they don't bring more people on. But if you're unlucky, or maybe you want to go, but if you want to go, you can just sign up. So if you're unlucky, then they kind of make you go and serve in the military or the police here in Colombia. So they've called for an end to that. They've also, the commission did hold the rebel groups to account for their really heinous and vast crimes, kidnapping an estimated 34,000 children over the 3 decades of the most intense part of the armed conflict. Many of those children kidnapped were forced to be child soldiers against their will. I remember my first time in Colombia was in about 2004, I believe. It may have been 2005, but I think it was 2004. And at that time, the conflict was still boiling. And if you lived in a rural area, you were in danger of your kid kind of walking off to school or to go out in the back and pick mangoes or something like that. And kind of like the boogeyman, they grab him out the bushes or her out the bushes and take them away, girls as well as boys, and force them to become soldiers. That was very common. A lot of rapes, a lot of child rapes, and the rebels, a lot of them are in prison. The peace process, there's a certain kind of like, it's not my area of expertise, but there's like 2 justice tracks, and you can face justice as a common criminal, or you can face justice by enrolling in the peace process, and you still may have to do prison time, but the judicial process is a little bit different, and there are some considerations, especially if you come clean and confess all of your sins, so to speak. And I think that one of the reasons that they want to do that is because they want to provide some kind of closure for victims, but they also find it very important to create a historical record for the future, to have a full round account of what happened during these dark decades in Colombia that we're hopefully coming out of. All told, the commission says over 250,000 Colombian civilians lost their life during the armed insurgency, and that still continues under antagonists like the ELN, that's still an armed and dangerous group, and the FARC dissidents who refused to go along with the peace deal in 2016 and demobilize. They just, I forget which one, even Marquez, they just killed one of the FARC big shots somewhere along the Venezuelan border, who was one of those who, even though he was part of the negotiation process, he decided that he wanted to go back out and continue to be a guerrilla rebel, and rejected peace. So President-elect Gustavo Petro says that he's going to incorporate the Truth Commission's recommendations into his administration's policy. On the other hand, outgoing President Ivan Duque made sure that he was out of the country when the report was presented. Duque campaigned against the peace accords, and during his administration did not make implementation of them a priority. The report's recommendations are not legally binding, but the report is intended to create a historical record, as I said, and to present guidance to prevent such atrocities from happening in the future, both in Colombia and really for the world. Speaking of Petro, there's a little less panic as he has appointed some notable non-radicals to his upcoming administration. Petro's named former senator and one-time presidential candidate, Conservative Party member and peace negotiator Alvaro Leiva Duran as the new foreign minister. A left-wing president appointing a Conservative Party senator to head foreign relations sends a strong message to Colombians and foreign governments that there may be less crazy in store than people feared. The UN's former Undersecretary of Economics and Social Affairs, Jose Antonio Ocampo, will be the new finance minister. And one of Petro's opponents for the presidency, the centrist academic Alejandro Gaviria, who has been serving most recently as the rector of Universidad de los Andes, University of the Andes, which is one of Colombia's most elite universities there in Bogota. He's been named as part of Petro's transition team, and many think he may be named as education minister. Gaviria served as health minister during the term of Juan Manuel Santos. He was known for being very didactic and being very, and making it a priority, making health education a priority. So not just administering health services, but really educating the public on health practices as well as health policies. I'd love to know what you think about this. Please comment. Please share your opinion with me. and give me your feedback. And of course, I would appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. And if you're listening to the audio version of this, give me a great rating, because that allows others to navigate towards this news recap. So thank you again, and I'll be back with you. Actually, maybe not in a week, maybe a little bit sooner, because I have some interesting feedback from the Vostok Capital Petroleum Congress, where I was a speaker last week, and we did some recording. We got some opinion and feedback, and I want to share that with you. So thanks again, and I'll speak to you soon. Again, I'd love to hear from you. Give me your comments and your feedback. I read all of them and interact if it's something that is a case for dialogue. Talk to you soon.
At the Viva Foundation, we are convinced that we all aboard the same flight, united in our differences. We believe in education as the route to closing the current poverty gap and towards its eventual extinction. We believe that inclusion is the route that provides opportunities for all, regardless of social, economic, or cultural differences. We believe in caring for the biodiversity as the route towards protecting the ecosystems that are the basis of life on this planet. Flying differently make us feel alive. Landing with opportunities make us the Viva Foundation, the first and only airline foundation in Colombia, committed to helping those who wish to reach higher.